Hello friends, welcome back to the Port of Indecision. This is Ray, and today's adventure takes us onto the Celebrity Beyond, where Captain Leo will tell us the 10 top questions that are asked of a ship's captain. And he'll also share everything about how the Celebrity Beyond operates and keeps us safe while we're out at sea.
We sailed from the Port of Indecision.
From Argentina, Captain Leo. Was it a Greek colony? Very good. So, once again, welcome. This is my favorite celebrity life activity, as we call it. Now, in the very first day, when I introduced the senior officers on the stage, I mentioned Celebrity Cruise goes back in time. It was not called Celebrity Cruises back then. It was called Chandris Lines. So here's the history a little bit of the company. If you take a look on the top left corner, you will find one of the very first Chandris Lines ships. But this is how the company started, with ships sailing from Greece, mainly immigration ships, or doing the cruise line connecting Greece to North America, Australia, South Africa, and so on. Eventually, the company evolved to Celebrity Cruises. On the middle left side, you will find the Zenith and Horizon, beautiful ships. On the bottom left is the Century class. And in the middle on the top, we have the beautiful Celebrity Flora. It was delivered a few years back, sailing in the Galapagos. Very, very beautiful itinerary indeed. We have the Millennium class, the Solstice class, and eventually the Edge class of ships. And the Edge is the latest, let's say, class of celebrity ships. The Beyond is the third one. And the Ascent just finished her crossing from France to Fort Lauderdale. So the Ascent, the brand new celebrity ship, is actually now docked Pier 19 in Fort Lauderdale. I believe we will be seeing the Ascent when we will be entering Fort Lauderdale the day after tomorrow. Now, very interestingly, when the Edge came out, the company said that this class of ships is designed to leave the future behind. I don't know how that works, but but it is a very beautiful class indeed. Myself, I joined recently the Beyond. I have been sailing the Celebrity Eclipse for the last 8 years. So what could possibly be my favorite ship?
The Eclipse.
Oh, it's already my favorite ship, correct? Yes, absolutely, yes. We have a very particular feeling. Obviously, we connect to the ship and the people who work on board, of course. The people are the heart and soul of each ship. The ship, by definition, is a metal construction, obviously, but it is the individual who put their hearts and they make it special. Now, how do we create itineraries? Normally you would ask, well, Captain Leo, we want to sail in Ithaca, the island you come from. What is the best way to suggest future itineraries? The best way, well, believe it or not, is by mentioning it in the questionnaire at the end of the cruise. I say this because Celebrity Cruise is part of a very big corporation, Royal Caribbean Corporation, which includes Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, Celebrity Cruises, TUI Cruises, Silver Seas, Hapag-Lloyd. So too many ships, too many itineraries, and literally everything nowadays works by statistics. If there is a great demand, the company will take it in consideration. So having that said, we have a specific department in Miami which is called the Deployment Department. This is the department responsible for creating future itineraries. Now, the Deployment Department is manned by marketing experts. So they would take in consideration the forces of the market, the competition, your suggestions, and they would create future itineraries. But that creates a little bit of a problem because marketing experts, they are not, let's say, operations people. So before we commit to an itinerary, they would provide us with the intention of the company in terms of itineraries. And we will do an evaluation from operation standpoint, from navigation standpoint as well. Speaking of navigation, I have sometimes received future itineraries where they require speeds from one port of call to the next port of call of 250 nautical miles per hour. it doesn't work. It's an exaggerated example, it has happened a few times, but some itineraries indeed they are borderline, and it's not only the required speed that we need to take into consideration, there is other factors such as the prevailing weather conditions, the time of the year we intend to visit the port, are there tugboats available in the port of call we want to visit, even to the detail of how strong is the bollard on the pier, can the bollard hold the lines of our ship, can the bollard hold a ship of this size, is the port deep enough, do we have ties that possibly will not provide sufficient underkill clearance for the duration of the stay, and so on and so on. So we would give the green light back to the company when the evaluation is completed, and then the itineraries are available for you to purchase from the comfort of your home or from the current cruise. Now this process takes place 2 to 3 years before we commit to an itinerary, and this is how we create itineraries. Now the Beyond is the biggest of the celebrity ships together with the Ascent. But how big is actually the Beyond? With the modern standards, believe it or not, the Beyond is considered to be a medium-sized cruise ship. Yes, it is a medium-sized cruise ship compared to the Allure of the Seas, the Oasis, the Icon of the Seas, which will be coming out very, very soon. We are nearly half the volume. So not half the length or half the width, half the total volume. So yes, the Beyond is a medium-sized cruise ship. Celebrity did not go extremes in the size of their ships. Actually, the Beyond or the Edge class is very close in size to the previous class, of the Solstice class, and this has to do with our vision in hospitality. But having that said, the Beyond is a considerable size construction herself. So allow me to place the Beyond next to some very famous landmarks for us to have an understanding of how big actually the Beyond is. Now, well, this is some two very famous landmarks, and this is it the Empire State Building? Mm-hmm. Wait, I think it's in Buenos Aires, is it?
No, they copied it from us.
So we have the Eiffel Tower, 324 meters, we have the Statue of Liberty, a little bit shy of that, and of course the Beyond, which is 327 meters in length, nearly equal to the height of the Eiffel Tower. We actually exceed the height of the Eiffel Tower, but this, trust me, this is an experiment we don't practice with guests on board. So 327 meters is the length of the ship. We are nearly 38 meters wide. Below the keel, 8.5 meters, 8.5 meters, and 61 meters above the waterline. So 61 meters high, 8.5 meters below the sea level. Then how come and how the ship remains stable? So we say the ship is bottom heavy. We don't actually say it. It is a fact. The ship is bottom heavy. The center of gravity of the ship is between deck 2, where were the gangways yesterday, and deck 3. This is how low the center of gravity of the ship is, and this is why the ship remains steady and stable. Now, where do we learn to navigate? Well, countries with strong interest in the shipping matters, in the shipping world, they have maritime academies. United States has maritime academies, Britain, Ireland, the Scandinavian countries, Italy, Greece, Japan, and so on and so on. So countries with strong interest in the shipping world, they have the maritime academies. This is a 4-year academic course. Graduates will be junior navigators, then they will sail for 3 years. They go back to the school and they study for a year to become senior navigators, then they sail 3 years, they go back to the school to become what we call master mariners. So in the celebrity fleet, obviously every captain is a master mariner. Every second in command or staff captain is also a qualified, sometimes the third in command on every ship is also a fully qualified master mariner. But as you appreciate, it is a combination between academic studies and experience or sea service, and this is the progression. We start from the lower ranks, junior navigators, senior navigators, and master mariners. So the most experienced of the pair of the officers who stand the watch on the bridge, they are assigned with the navigation of the ship. So this is called the navigation officer. So the navigation officer is a senior navigator. He or she will take the expectations of the captain in creating the voyage and the passage plans. This plan will be reviewed by a second individual qualified master mariner for a second person check. The environmental officer will be included in the process to make sure that with our planning we will not violate any environmental rules and regulations. And finally, the plan will be going back to the captain for the final approval. So everything that happens on the bridge is always cross-checked by a second qualified individual. There is always a second check in everything we do. And speaking of voyage and passage planning, the planning is divided, or every leg of the cruise divided in 3 different stages. We have the outbound passage plan, the departure maneuver until the ship is in the open seas, in safe waters. We have the sailing in open waters, which by definition has a reduced risk in terms of navigation, and we call that a voyage plan. And the inbound passage plan is the arrival plan until the ship is safely alongside the pier in the arriving port. So 3 different stages for every leg of the cruise. Now, how do we encourage the bridge team to speak up? This is something very, very important, and this is a huge change in the mentality starting or compared to the times I first started with the company. Now you will go back in time, 1997, when I joined as a junior navigator. The only person who would speak on the bridge would be the captain. Now, this is nowadays considered to be an unsafe approach because the bridge team was reluctant to question the captain's decisions. So we consider now we are all humans, which means we are all subject to making mistakes. Obviously the captain is the most experienced navigator, but once again we are all humans. We encourage everyone to speak up. In order for everyone to speak up, it is very important for everybody to have an understanding of what is expected, and for this reason we do the pre-departure briefings. Everybody shares a mental model of what is expected to happen, and by sharing the mental model of what is expected to happen, everyone will have a feeling if and when we start deviating from the plan, and it is the duty of every person on the bridge to speak up if they feel that we start deviating from the plan. Now, the cruise industry was not pioneer in this concept, but we actually copied the airline industry. The airlines suffered some catastrophic accidents in the 70s and the 80s, and they created what they call CRM, or Crew Resource Management System, the effective use of all the resources in the cockpit. We adapted this to our world, and we created the Bridge Resource Management System, which has to do with the effective use of all the resources on the bridge. The most important resource to the date, of course, remain and is the human factor. BRM, Bridge Resource Management, and to achieve this, or to complement this, we have a closed loop communication system, which means every order needs to be repeated to avoid misunderstanding, and the loop closes. So if the officer of the watch will give an order to the quartermaster, rudder starboard 10, the quartermaster will repeat, rudder starboard 10, and the loop will close by saying yes. So there is no room for misunderstanding. And we also have a think aloud principle. Thinking aloud means our intentions are verbally expressed to the bridge team before the action happens. This gives sufficient time to the bridge team to speak up. So we would say, my intention is to alter the ship's course 20 degrees to starboard in order to have minimum distance with this vessel 2 nautical miles. Everyone knows what is expected to happen. We have sufficient time to make a correction if needs be. And once again, this is a huge change in the mentality. Well, who is my mentor?
Alejandro.
Yeah, that lets me speechless. Yes. Anyone else?
Your grandfather.
My grandfather.
Yeah.
Captain Jack. No, it was not Captain Jack. My grandfather was my mentor. Yes, you're right. My grandfather was my mentor, also a captain. When I expressed my feeling, though, when I was 16 years old, I said I want to become a captain myself. My grandfather was not happy at all. Nor my father. And the reason for that is because when my grandfather was sailing, he used to be away from home 2 to 3 years each time.
Oh.
Now imagine that, back in the 50s, 2 to 3 years away from home.
Wow.
No planes back then, or very difficult, very expensive, I guess. So literally, they would take the ship from Europe, whatever the port, go by train from Greece to the port, take the ship, and whenever the ship will return to Europe, they might have an opportunity to disembark. Now, of course, this is not the standard. I will work for 3 months, and then I'm home for another 3 months. Normally, the officers will do 4 months on and 2 months off. The crew will do 6 months on board and 2 months home. But even in 1997, we used to do 8 months on board and 2 home, and the crew used to do 12 months on board.
Wow.
So, tremendous progress in that respect as well. Now the bridge, the navigational bridge, this is where Alejandro normally is driving the ship. This is how the bridge of the Beyond looks like. This is a state-of-the-art bridge, integrated bridge system with, we have a German manufacturer, actually now it's bought by Wärtsilä, Finnish company, but the manufacturer was Atlas Electronics. And this is how the bridge looks like. Now this is called a one-person bridge, which means only one person can safely navigate the ship. We have minimum 3 or 4 depending on the area of navigation. Regardless that this is called a one-person bridge, 24/7 the bridge is manned by minimum 3 or 4 individuals, 2 officers and 1 or 2 sailors, 24/7. Now, how do we maneuver? Maneuvering, we are blessed. This is a highly maneuverable ship, and those of you who have small boats, craft, sailing boats, motorboats, the principles that govern the maneuvering of a ship like the Beyond is exactly the principles that govern the maneuvering of a smaller craft. Now, the main difference is that, well, if my maneuver does not go as per plan, I cannot extend my leg outside the ship side from preventing it. So this is not an option. The principles are exactly the same. The main difference is size excluding. It is the inertia. This is a very heavy ship, which means the forces applied to the ship take time for the results to become in effect. You want to slow down the ship, you need to apply the forces early enough. If the ship is drifting sideways, you need to early enough apply the correcting force for you to see the results. Now, when we approach the pier, for the last 300 meters, nearly one length of the ship, if we go more than 3 knots, 3 nautical miles per hour, 3, this is considered to be a fast approach to the final berthing position of the size, the weight of the ship. So inertia. But every celebrity ship is equipped with the azimuth system. Celebrity cruise that respect, the very first cruise ships equipped with the azimuth was the Millennium ships. The Millennium, together with the Radiance class on the Royal side, the first cruise ships worldwide to adopt the system, which provide us with tremendous maneuverability. The ship is equipped with thrusters as well to provide us with the lateral force on the forward part of the ship, and we will see how they look like. We will say about the stabilization and a little bit about the steering of the ship as well. Now let's go to the azimuths. The azimuth looks like this. So literally, the Beyond does not have a rudder. There is no rudder on the ship, but the body of the azimuth serves as the rudder. You see, the propeller is mounted on the pod. The azimuth has a rotational freedom of 360 degrees. So we can apply the thrust of the propeller in any given direction. This provides us with tremendous maneuverability. It is a fantastic system, huge power. You can imagine the 2 azimuths can push the ship forward with 22.5 knots. So we have huge power for maneuvering. But having that said, this is a great system which comes with some very important restrictions. The operator needs to be very familiar with the restrictions of the use of the boat. First restriction, we never throw water from one azimuth to the other azimuth, and we never operate the azimuths in a stern motion. This is very important. If we want to slow down or start moving backwards, we would need to rotate the azimuths from facing forward, and the propellers are always facing forward, to facing aft, back. And the question is, and how much time does this take? Well, it takes 36 seconds. Well, 36 seconds in everyday life sounds pretty minimal period of the time, but trust me, 36 seconds when we maneuver in extreme weather conditions is a very considerable period of the time. Hence, the operator needs to be very familiar with the use of the azimuth, and a good ship's handler as well. We always need to think ahead where we will need the azimuths to be positioned for the next move we will need for the maneuvering. So indeed, this is a great system with huge power, tremendous maneuverability. We can sustain side winds up to 35 knots, and this does not come with the azimuths. This has to do with the thrusters. The azimuths are positioned on the aft part of the ship, on the back of the ship, and for the forward end of the ship, we are equipped with the bow thrusters. Now the Beyond is equipped with 4 bow thrusters, which is propellers vertically placed on the forward end of the ship. They can supply the side force needed for maneuvering. We have only lateral force as a result of the thrusters. So 19,000 horsepower, the power of all thrusters in combination. They can sustain side winds up to 35 knots. This is the weaker part of the ship in terms of maneuvering. What about stabilization? Stabilizers, the Beyond has 1 pair of stabilizers, 2 fins, 1 on each side. On the left side you will see how the stabilizers look when they are retracted, and on the right side you will see how the stabilizers they look when they are extended. The stabilizers have a length of nearly 7 meters, and they take the optimum angle, the fin at the very end and the entire blade, in order to keep the ship as much as possible in the upright position. The stabilizers minimize only the rolling motion from side to side. They do not affect the up and down motion, not the pitching or the slamming of the ship, only the rolling motion from side to side. They are gyroscopically controlled. Now, if you ask me, the ship moving from side to side, this is actually something very, very good. It is not comfortable, but in terms of stability, when the ship is rolling from side to side, it means that if the ship is pushed by an outside external force on one side, she has the ability to return to the upright position by herself. This is very, very important, very positive. Of course, a little bit uncomfortable. The alarming thing in terms of stability is when the ship is pushed on one side by an external force and she does not come back to the upright position. But for your comfort, we use the stabilizers, and once again, 2 fins, 1 pair, 6 meters below the waterline, 7 meters in length. Now we use the stabilizers in heavy seas. We have rolling motion. Sometimes we use the stabilizers when we want to execute a rough turn, a sharp turn with high speed to minimize the heeling on one side. And of course we use from time to time the stabilizers when we have many honeymooners on board.
Honeymooners.
Do we have a steering wheel?
Yes.
Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we do have a steering wheel. It does not look like the traditional steering wheel anymore. This is how the steering wheel looks like. It is a little bit more modern. Now the next question is, do we actually use it? Yes, we have it, but do we actually use it? No? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Not in the open seas. So in the open seas, yes, autopilot. Autopilot does not mean that the bridge is not manned. Autopilot means there is still the manning on the bridge, but the autopilot keeps the heading of the ship in the desired, let's say, heading of the compass or course over the ground. So the ship is always manned. Now, when we will be doing the approach to the ports, we will be switching to hand steering, a quartermaster, an able-bodied sailor, as we call it. He would follow the orders of the officer of the watch or the captain to steer the ship, and the final stage of the maneuver is manually performed by controlling its azimuth independently by the levers we have on the bridge. So, what happens if the steering wheel fails? Good luck. Back up. Yes, back up. So, if the steering wheel fails, we have what we call the mini wheel. The mini wheel is in the central console. It serves exactly the same purpose as the steering wheel. This is a backup to the wheel. So we have a wheel and a mini wheel. What happens if the mini wheel fails at the same time? If the mini wheel fails at the same time, we can control each azimuth independently. This is the levers we have on the bridge for each azimuth. This is how maneuver docking and undocking the ship. And if this fails, we can control the azimuths by the non-follow-up system. 2 tillers on the bridge, 1 for each azimuth. And if this fails, we can control the azimuths locally from the azimuth room. So there is tremendous redundancy in terms of steering the ship. But in order to steer the ship, we said the azimuth works as the rudder. We need to keep the propellers moving. We need to have power. In order to keep the propellers moving, we need to have power. For power generation, the Beyond is equipped with 5 diesel generators, 73,000 horsepower in combination. Only with one engine we can have 8 knots of speed. With one engine only, we can have 8 knots of speed, power on both azimuths, power everywhere in the accommodation. So with extra engines we can achieve up to the maximum ship speed. We can overhaul one engine and still have 4 engines provide power everywhere in the accommodation. We can have good steering and propulsion. If 2 or 3 engines fail at the same time, highly unlikely. We still have power everywhere, reduced speed of course. And as we said, with only one engine we can do approximately of speed and still have power everywhere. Now what happens in the extreme remote possibility that all 5 engines will fail at the same time?
You have a sale.
Alejandro, yes. Alejandro has a big, do you still have this plastic boat? No, okay, so. If all engines fail at the same time, we have an emergency generator. Okay, emergency generator will provide minimum power on one azimuth only, minimum power. The emergency generator provides power to the electronic navigational equipment, to the equipment in the engine control room, life-saving firefighting appliances, and only the emergency lights, only. But every celebrity ship, the Beyond included, has an additional emergency generator. So we have a second emergency generator which is above and beyond the requirements. So we have 5 diesel generators, an emergency generator, an additional emergency generator. Now you have noticed probably the ship has a little bit strange bow design, and I think this was one of the very first cruise ships that made a change now in the design of ships lately. So this is called the parabolic bow. This is how the bridge, the bow of the Beyond looks like. You will see we still have the bulbous bow, but much smaller. Now this design provides a more comfortable ride, especially with heavy seas. The ship is not slamming heavily on the waves. So when the ship is going up and down, you don't feel such a heavy impact when hitting the waves. Hence, we can have more speed and a more comfortable ride. In addition to that, we have a system that creates bubbles under the keel in order to reduce the friction, okay, and provide us better, let's say, hydrodynamics. So this has to do with the design of the ship. When talking about the anchors, we use the anchor in Grand Cayman to keep the ship in one position. Of course, we have 2 anchors. This is how they look like. Every anchor weighs 15 tons, okay? But then you will say, excuse me, we have now 140,000 gross tonnage on board. 15 tons, can they actually hold the ship? Yes? No, they don't. They cannot. But it is actually the weight of the chain that will hold the ship. So the total chain is 385 meters, depending on how deep the water is. We will deploy 5 or 6 shackles out of the 14 available, and depending on the weather conditions, the chain together with the anchor will sink in the mud or in the sand, and then indeed it will keep the ship in one position. In heavier weather or stronger winds, we can even drop both anchors at the same time, and so on and so on. So yes, indeed, but it is actually the chain that provides us with the extra weight that will keep the ship when at anchor. Now, life-saving appliances. Do we have enough on board?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we do. Now, when the first rules came in effect, it was a result, and I'm talking about the safety of life at sea regulations, they came in effect after a very famous accident, the Titanic. The Titanic was blamed for not having enough life-saving appliances for every person on board. Nowadays, of course, all the ships have enough life-saving appliances for every person on board. Actually, they don't have only for the person on board, but they have minimum 25% extra from the maximum capacity guest and crew combined. So life-saving appliances, on the left side is the lifeboats. All our guests would go to lifeboats, and on the right side, this is the box of the MES, Marine Evacuation System. This is the life rafts, and this is the chute that will connect the deck to the life raft, and the crew will need to jump in the chute and land inside the life raft. Now, obviously, the chute will slow down the fall, and the crew practice this fall when the ships are delivered from the yard to the company, and when every 5 years that we have to do this repetition of the test. So this is in regards to the life-saving appliances. And what another feature that makes the Beyond famous in every ship is the magic carpet. The magic carpet by design, okay, an extra very interesting feature. But how heavy is actually the carpet? Anyone would like to take a guess? Very, yes, that's correct. Very, very heavy. Very good. Do we have an extra brochure for the gentleman? Very heavy. The magic carpet has a total weight of nearly 60 tons. 60 tons. Now 60 tons, they are not on one position, because when you move these 60 tons up and down, it means you are changing the stability of the ship. So on the bottom part of the ship we have 2 pairs, 4 tanks that we can transfer water from one side of the ship to the other side. It's not only for the magic carpet, the wind is changing all the time. We have a huge surface exposed to the wind. So wind changes, we transfer water from the healing tanks from one side to the other side to compensate for the wind and compensate for the effect of the magic carpet depending on the position. Now, speaking of weights and how they affect the stability of the ship, or how the immersion of the ship. Now you come on board with your luggage, etc., and sometimes you ask with all these people on board and luggage, etc., how much is the stability affected? Not a lot, like minimal. For the ship, this ship, I mean, particularly to be immersed by an additional centimeter, 1 centimeter additional immersion, it will require 110 tons of weight. So if you add 110 tons of weight on the ship will be immersed by 1 centimeter. Okay, this is for the Beyond. Every ship is different, obviously. Now, how often do we take the ship out of the water? Obviously, the Beyond is less than 2 years old. The ship's taken in dry dock, and this is my last ship. This is the Eclipse, the construction of the Eclipse, and the second picture is the last dry dock of the Eclipse. Now, the Eclipse was delivered 2010. Every 5 years, we take the ships out of the water. So 2015, 2020, the last dry dock of the ship. So eventually, when the Beyond will be 5 years old, we'll be going for her first dry dock. Having that said, the underhull of the ship is inspected annually by the Classification Society. So the Classification Society will come on board once per year for the annual inspection. They will inspect all the machinery, life-saving, firefighting appliances, and they will provide us with the certification needed for us to be allowed to set sail. Without the ship certificates, we are not allowed to sail. But annually, the underhull is inspected by the Classification Society with the assistance of divers. And every 5 years, the ships are out of the water. Now, this is the Eclipse, but this is how the Beyond looked like in her construction. So you would see on the top right corner is the final result. On the left-hand side, this is still work in progress. On the bottom right corner, you will see this cherry picker. This is myself with a spray gun for some final touches. But this is how the ship looks outside the water, and once again, every 5 years, indeed, we take the ships out of the water. So, when is actually the ship ready to sail? Always. The ship is ready to sail 24/7. We are in the dock, we are in readiness to set sail. Having that said, when we are on the pier, we always run one engine for the needs of the accommodation. The ship is ready to sail 24/7, but before we actually commit to the departure maneuver, we have the pre-departure checklist, which means all the navigational equipment, propulsion and steering are in order before we set sail. So we have the pre-departure checklist, equipment checks, and most importantly, before we commit to the departure maneuver, you can ask for the captain's coffee. Hopefully they know it here because this is a new ship for me. So the captain's coffee is very straightforward. It's a double shot, super extra boiling hot almond milk cappuccino with cinnamon on top in the shape of an Admiralty anchor. So that's how I like my coffee. So yeah. Well, obviously not. Yes, the captain is not always on the bridge. The most popular question is who is driving the ship actually. This is by far the most common question. Now, the bridge team is responsible for the safe navigation of the ship, taking the expectations of the captains. Of course, the officer in charge of the navigational watch is by law the representative of the captain on the bridge. They will follow the voyage plan. But in order to assist in safe navigation of the ship, the company has set expectations, which is given by the NPP or the Navigation Policies and Procedures Manual. This is a very extensive manual, 200 pages. Every officer will give exams once per year, internal exams, in order to be allowed to stand a watch on the bridge. This is a generic manual, and because we sail in different parts of the world, every captain will provide the bridge team with additional standing orders. So this is called the Master's Standing Orders, additional instructions to the bridge team. And one of the most important parts of the standing orders, since the captain is not always on the bridge, is...
Don't hit anything. Don't hit anything.
When do I want to be called? Okay, this needs to be very specific. I want to be called if the visibility changes. I want to be called if we cannot achieve minimum distance with other ships 2 nautical miles. This is an example. I want to be called when we have an equipment failure. I want to be called if the bridge watch or the officers see land when they are not supposed to see land. And it goes on. You're laughing, but this is part of the standing orders. Yes. So there's very specific instructions on when I want to be called. But the most important instruction is I want to be called the moment the bridge officers start to think, shall I call the captain? The moment someone starts thinking, shall I call the captain, this is the time to call the captain. So this is very important part of our procedures. And eventually, in order to promote the safety of navigation, the situational awareness, we have divided the navigation in 3 different stages, the watch conditions. We have low risk, medium risk, high risk navigation. Low risk navigation, like now, we are in the open seas, the weather is good, visibility is good, there is no traffic, we are away from the land or the grounding line. Perfect. the bridge watches by themselves. For yellow condition, one or more factors change, myself or the staff captain, the second in command will be on the bridge to assist the bridge team. For the red navigation condition, high risk navigation, myself together with the staff captain, minimum 7 individuals on the bridge will be there in order to delegate the workload and promote the situation.
But I'm here. I cannot hear.
God help? Yes, God help us, yes. But if you look in the background, you will see a very interesting motto, which is part of every celebrity ship from the very first ship. Okay, from the very first ship, every celebrity ship has this motto: eternal vigilance is the price of safety, and this is what we stand for. Obviously, we are here to provide you with an exceptional cruise experience, at least that's what we try. But before we do that, the main 3 pillars is the safety of life, the safety of the ship, the protection of the environment. When we guarantee these 3 pillars, obviously we are here to provide you with an exceptional cruise experience. To promote situational awareness and of course the safety of navigation, we touch base, we say we have state-of-the-art electronic navigational equipment, radars to detect targets above the waterline, electronic charts, we still have the paper charts as a backup, we have a conning display and we will see how it looks like, which provides very interesting information. The underkill clearance by the echo sounder is provided. We have radios for communication, VHF and FHF for longer distance communication, a safety center that controls all the detectors on board, and we have a global positioning system, of course, for positioning, and we also have compasses, 2 gyro compasses and 1 magnetic compass that we actually calibrated before departing Curacao. And the coffee machine, yes, and the coffee machine. So, all the electronic equipment share information. This is very important. This is what is called integrated bridge system. The electronic equipment share information. The operator does not need to run from monitor to monitor, display in order to collect the information. The information is available in front of the eyes of the operator in 2 monitors, the radar display and the conning display. And once again, this is to promote the situational awareness. On the left-hand side, this is the conning display. Information, okay, this is not very clear for you. It takes time to be familiar with the screen and the information provided. On the top left, we have the weather conditions, the wind and the current. We have the sketch of the ship with the position of the pods and how much power we are using, the underhill clearance, and so on, the heading of the compass, the course over the ground, if we are drifting on one side or the other side. And on the right side, this is the radar display. So with green color is the reception of the radar signal, and with when we have as a background the nautical chart as well. So the electronic chart is together with the radar, again for situational awareness. Hey, Captain Leo, do we have a black box on board? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, but it's not black.
It's orange.
And we don't call it black box. So we call it VDR. It's an acronym which stands for Voyage Data Recorder, VDR. It serves exactly the same purpose as the black box of the plane. This is how it looks like. It collects information from the electronic navigational equipment. It stores information. The bridge is also equipped with speakers. It records 24/7 every conversation that takes place on the bridge, recorded in the VDR. The bridge has cameras that record 24/7 every activity that takes place on the bridge. It is recorded also on the Voyage Data Recorder. Now, speaking of cameras for security purposes, the ship has cameras almost everywhere. We have cameras in public spaces, we have cameras in guest corridors, we have cameras in guest staterooms, and so on. It was a good cruise, huh? So when we exit deck 4, we are selling the highlights of no. There is no cameras in your staterooms. Not yet, so yes. But indeed, we have the black box, we call it VDR, it serves exactly the same purpose. Now, positioning. Well, nowadays your mobile phone has a very accurate positioning. I guess this is the evolution of technology. We have a global positioning system, GPS receiver on the bridge. Actually, we have two with an additional correction, which makes it the differential global positioning system. We have an error of 30 centimeters, 0.3 meters, pretty accurate for a construction of 327 meters by 38 meters wide. When we approach the land, closer to the land, we do terrestrial navigation, we do radar navigation, and for training purposes in the open seas, we do celestial navigation, which is still taught in the Maritime Academy. So this is the three ways to plot the ship's position. Now, do we have to follow specific lanes?
Yes.
Now this question comes mostly from airline pilots, like from one airport to the other airport. There's a very strict lanes that need to be followed and very strict altitude. So we also follow a very strict altitude, but we don't follow lanes. So we have the freedom to create our own track. So we can say, I want to go make this track, I want to modify it like this, pass from one side of the island, the other side of the island. This is, it's up to us. Obviously, we try to make it in the most efficient way. But having that said, there is certain parts of the world with heavy maritime traffic. So in certain parts of the world only, the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, has adopted and implemented traffic separation zones. So this is very specific areas. This is the straits. On the left side you see the straits of Juan de Fuca. The English Channel is another example. The Singapore Straits is another example. Gibraltar and so on. So indeed, in areas in the world with heavy maritime traffic, we have certain traffic separation zones that we need to follow. But other than that, we have the freedom to create our own tracks. And for the ships enthusiasts on the right side, an interesting site is the marinetraffic.com. So you can have an accurate picture of the marine traffic worldwide, live, and this is how it looks like. So marine traffic with different colors is the different types of ships. Once again, this is the marinetraffic.com. If you're interested, it is very interesting indeed. You can select the target, you can have the name of the ship, the destination, the ETA to the next port of call, and so on and so on. Now, this is myself when I started my career. It doesn't look a very clean job, does it? No, it does not. So you see Alejandro, you see myself, you see the hotel director, the chief engineer. This is how everybody starts. So we all start in the very bottom ranking positions, and this, I think, in my eyes, it is very, very important. It gives us the opportunity to remain humble, because we appreciate more the job that each and every person does on board. Normally, you would see more Alejandro more than everybody else. You would see me. We receive your good words about, hopefully how good things are on board. But trust me, there's so many people who work. Some of them you will see, others you will not see. And we all start from the very, very bottom. And I really appreciate those times. I started in '95 on tanker ships. This is a picture of back then. I was a deck boy, which would probably call it an assistant to a sailor, not even a sailor. I joined Celebrity in '97, of course, and I love ships above all, coming from a shipping, a family with a strong tradition, and being a fourth generation captain now. But I also love people, and what better environment than this one. So this is myself on my first encounter with the steering wheel when my father took me to visit his brother, who was also a captain. So we visited him on one cargo ship, and this is my very first time I was on a bridge, and actually I interacted with the steering wheel. This is my first contract with Celebrity '97. Then that is the Galaxy in the background, of course. Yes, my grandfather, my family. And I served the Greek Navy for 2 years, which is a mandatory service for all Greeks. Most of us serve the army. Because of my background and my studies, I served the Navy instead of the army for 2 years. And as my grandfather would say, it's not life at shore that is distasteful to me, but life at sea is better. Oh no, wait a minute, Sir Francis Drake said that, so yes. So thank you very, very much. I'm sure you have questions. Thank you for attending this presentation. We try to cover as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Captain Leo, for your time here.